You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There is a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for March 10th, 2023. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we congratulate Keith Olbermann on the 150th episode of his podcast on this, the 700th episode of The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
Happy 700th episode, Driftglass. And, that's coming and going. That doesn't count Science Fiction University.
No, it doesn't count Science Fiction University or all the outtakes or the many, many thousands of hours of David Brooks stuff you've cut out. Doesn't count any of that.
All that stuff on the cutting room floor. Blah, 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 blah.
I believe I heard the mail truck drop off our invitation to join the Crooked Media Empire. Nope. Oh, okay. We're still just a Midwest podcast in the middle of a cornfield.
Nope. We did get a letter. We got a letter from Kia today, though.
Oh, we did?
Yeah. Junior Dude's car, which
that's right.
Is still waiting for parts on that ignition.
Yeah.
Kia says they've got a software fix for us at some time in the next 18 months. So
I got my software fix for Kia right here. If you take a close look.
I think they need a much more than a software fix.
Yeah, they do. It's been, I understand it's a massive problem. They've been cranking out parts. But are they constructing ignition systems like in zero gravity environments in space?
I don't know.
Because it's taken
Kia dealers are not necessarily honest people anyway.
No. Just saying.
Look, there's this song, Driftglass, that I used to listen to a lot by Mary Chapin Carpenter called "I Feel Lucky." And it is absolutely a novelty song.
Right.
It's about a woman who wakes up and reads her horoscope and she looks at her numbers and she does this and all the omens are that she's going to have a horrible day and a horrible life and a horrible this and horrible that. And the refrain of the song is, "I feel lucky."
Okay.
And at the end of the song, she wins $11 million in the lottery. And the line is, "Bought the house a double, bought the waitress a new car." And so, it's a country song.
Right.
But the line in it about the horoscope, I just keep thinking all day long about Jim Jordan.
Yeah.
The stars are stacked against you, girl. Get back in bed.
Yeah, don't go in that room, Jim. Don't go in the room, Jim. They're waiting for you in there.
The omens for March. Your moon is up Schitt's Creek.
Yeah. When your fortune cookie is just a blank piece of paper with sad emojis on it.
Yes, right.
Take the hint, Jim. But Jim is not a hint taker. No. If he were, maybe a lot more people would have not been molested at his school.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that the Fox News producers that provide him with content for his committees, so that he can then provide content for their shows, are kind of busy right now.
Yeah. Well, you have expected these hearings for some guy with a headset on and a Fox News lanyard to come walking out and go, "Okay, we're going to do this all over again. Okay,
right.
This is not working for us. Okay, the angles
Dan
are wrong."
Goldman, you are working out too well for the Democrats.
Yeah.
We can't have Dan Goldman on the committee. Oh, yeah, you have to. You kind of have to.
This whole Matt Taibbi thing, I get it. He's a schlub and you're kicking his ass. But at this point, it's like kicking a puppy. He's just sitting there taking incoming from all sides, wondering whatever happened to his fucking career. And he's doing it on national television.
On television. Yeah, on C-SPAN. Yeah. And on Twitter. Everybody's clipping it and going, "This is a shit show."
Yeah.
This is the Matt Taibbi shit show.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? Here's the thing. I think you want to remind people that it's like a glorious shit show turducken. It's just layer after layer of completely separate or somewhat tangentially related scandals all happening at the same time to the same horrible people. And although we shouldn't schadenfreude too much over it, I think we should.
I think we should. I think we should, because all of this is the consequences of their own actions.
Indeed.
So, we'll get started on all of this. Now, I want to start also by saying, don't let the hundreds of glorious pages of exhibits from the Dominion lawsuit overshadow the fact that Democrats are punching back.
Yes.
There was the outing of Jim Jordan's bullshit hearings last week that we have to talk about. I mean, this is going so fast at this point.
And so rapidly downhill.
Rapidly downhill. Jim Jordan promised Fox News that he had dozens and dozens of FBI whistleblowers ready to come in and talk about January 6th being, a false flag or inside operation, or the Biden people were behind it, or whatever else.
And it was going to be this wasn't explicit, but it was clearly meant to be coordinated with Tucker Carlson's hard-hitting 28-part series about the
J6. Yeah. It's all gonna come together. We're gonna have these fantastic FBI whistleblowers. Well, the unfortunately for Jim Jordan, the Democrats on the committee and their staffs were permitted and are entitled to interview the witnesses as well.
Oh no, we forgot that part. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the Democrats released a 213-page report prepared by Jerry Nadler's staff.
Yeah, the Keebler elves over there.
Because the House Democrats, and this is what I think is so fantastic about having Goldman, Representative Goldman, who's a former prosecutor and also was part of the impeachment process as a lawyer. He clearly brought his investigative staff with him to Congress.
Yes, he did. And
so they know what to do. And they work for a living. And they get up in the morning and work for a living. And it's not, I'm going to promise, my job is to promise Fox News I have dozens and dozens of whistleblowers. And no one questions that. It's, I'm going to take the people you say are whistleblowers, Jim, and simply ask them questions about who they are and what do they do now and and do you have a Twitter account? Well, okay, you do. Okay, I'm going to look at your tweets. And that's
weird.
It turns out they're just 3 retired randos.
Right.
Who watch a lot of Fox News and tweet about Antifa. And a couple of them have been retired since 2014, 2015, Driftglass.
Yeah. Well, they hear stuff, Blue Gal. They hear stuff. I heard stuff. Isn't that called, I don't know, circumstantial? Third or fourth party telephone game. Well, Guy at a bar told me that his cousin definitely knows that there was Antifa in the crowd. And, so basically Jim Jordan promised Andor and delivered the Star Wars holiday special. It's just, the one George Lucas tried to track down every copy of and burn because it was that bad. It was that destructive to his reputation. Yeah, there's no tracking this shit down, Jim Jordan. And of course, remember, if you're over on Fox, you're not hearing any of this.
No, I know.
This is not happening at all. This is it's caravans of Hunter Biden laptops carrying fentanyl coming to your neighborhood.
Yep.
And that's it. That's
in
all
the
you're
Halloween
hearing.
Don't forget. Don't forget. It was all in the Halloween candy.
Right. Whatever happened to that, Blue Gal? Was that
the day after? It's gone. It's not a story anymore.
No, somebody stole all our fentanyl. That's and we say, and here's something we do mention.
You stole my kid's fentanyl.
Where's my Fenty? You stole the Fenty.
He was dressed as Darth Vader. Where's his fentanyl?
and we do say this from time to time, but it bears repeating that yes, they are as brainwashed as anyone in North Korea or anyone in the Soviet Union. But you know what? Unlike those places, there is no one putting a gun to their head or putting barbed wire around their home and forcing them to do this. This is all because these assholes won't change the fucking channel. That's it. This is on the voters' base. This is on the Republican base. And the people that use them and feed them and keep them supplied with bullshit.
Well, and the extent to which, and we don't know, and maybe we'll never know, the extent to which foreign influence is behind so much of this.
Yeah.
Someone on Facebook replied to me. I put up Tucker's quote about hating Trump on Facebook, thinking it might do some good. And one of my face-to-face friends wrote back to me and said, no, the Fox News viewer that I know in my social circle literally had tears in her eyes because Ukraine has stolen all that land from Russia.
It's so sad. So
Yeah.
all the Nazis in Ukraine have stolen all that land.
Have stolen all that land from Russia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no cure for that. There's no
there isn't.
helping these people because
Yep.
they've been trained for decades to fight like wild dogs against anyone who tries to tell them anything they don't want to hear. And I just throw up my hands and go, fine,
Yeah.
rot in hell, man. This is either we've had this conversation before, you and I. Either they are adults and have agency, and this is their own goddamn fault, or they're not. And in which case they should be wards of the state because they're not competent to conduct lives like an adult human being, and they shouldn't be voting. They shouldn't be have anything to do with public policy because they're clearly incompetent to be citizens and grown-ups in a democracy.
Okay, but Driftglass, you and I both, I mean, your parents have both passed away. My mother has passed away.
Yes.
My father's still alive.
Yes.
You and I have the benefit, and I consider it a tremendous blessing. All four of our parents were educated people who did not fall for that.
Well,
and
if my dad had been around long enough, I don't know what would have happened because he was
a
Republican.
Okay.
No, he's a Reagan Republican.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, he was a man.
I never knew him. I knew your mother was a good hippie.
Yeah. Oh no, if you would never have known they were married had you met them, side by side later in life.
Yeah.
His wife was a Republican and he was a Republican, and they were very conservative, and they moved first to Arizona, and they moved to Florida, and they liked it there, and they liked being among people like themselves. And
you're being very harsh to these Republican folks in the abstract, and I get that.
I am.
But we have listeners who have family members who
I know.
They have to in some way either deal with this or decide not to.
Yeah.
And I know that there are people who have very sadly had to divorce themselves from family members, or whose family members have divorced themselves from all family responsibility, because I have to scroll through my phone to find the latest on Pizzagate, Solyndra, baby parts.
Right.
Whatever the latest thing is that's supposed to get me upset. And I'm doing this for your children because I want to protect my grandchildren from Antifa. I want to protect my and so I'm doing you a favor by ignoring all my kids and all my grandkids and just doom scrolling to protect everybody in my social circle from the evil that is the Democratic Party. Blah,
to
blah,
save
blah,
your soul.
Right?
And
to save your soul.
All I'm seeing is those people should be treated no worse than Phyllis Schlafly treated her gay son.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not giving anyone family or marital advice or friendship advice or work advice. I am saying, having tried literally everything for decades to get through to these people, it's clear they don't want anything we're selling. They're not interested in the truth anymore. Yeah. And at some point, and because I haven't dealt with hardcore conservatives, in my immediate blood family, but I have dealt with addicts.
Yeah, yes,
at some point, you got to say, you know what? The restraining order means you got to stay away. And we're not negotiating anymore. You're not coming to crash here anymore. I'm not going to let you in my life anymore until you're clean. We don't know each other because all you do is destroy things, and all you do is make everyone around you miserable. And that's the behavior I'm seeing. It's addiction. And it's a cheap.
They're in an addictive situation. Yeah.
And it's an inexpensive addiction. It doesn't cost them anything. They turn on the television and it's right there for them all day long, all night long. And there's no health effects as far as I can tell. I mean, many thousands have died of COVID because these idiots believe what they saw on Fox, but that's, not long-term deleterious effects. It's just, at some point you got to say, I can't help you and I can't be around you anymore.
But the Fox News employees, and especially the on-air talent, are drug dealers.
They know it. They all know it.
And they know it.
I had that exchange with Jay Rosen earlier this week, which is they're drug kingpins. They don't like or respect their addicts, but their addicts make them and their partners rich. The people who are supposed to be cops are either wildly outgunned or are corrupt.
Yeah.
The people who are supposed to be, the equivocators, the both-siderists are the police who are supposed to be enforcing the law, and they're completely corrupt, so they won't do it. And the news side of Fox News is the soup kitchen that the drug kingpins finance to keep goodwill in the media neighborhood.
Right.
But they're just fucking criminals, and they should be treated as pariahs. Tucker Carlson should not be able to go out in public for the rest of his life without being shunned and shamed for the rest of his life. And everyone attached to him, Children are out of the question. Don't know about his wife. Don't care. But anyone who works at Fox News now, all of you know what's going on. And if you're not leaving now, don't come around this podcast looking for work. Because first of all, we're not hiring. But
we don't have anybody to.
No.
We don't even pay the cats except in kibble.
Yeah, we do. We give them all the love they want. Anyway, moving on. I have a bunch of quotes that maybe I can throw at you, and you can guess. And some of them are 5 quotes.
Is this a game show, Driftglass?
It's kind of a game show. Let's see how it goes. Let's see.
Okay.
It all depends on how many stupid quotes we get per week, and see if I can come up with something. Maybe none of them are Donald Trump. Maybe one. Maybe all 5. I'll leave it to you to understand, or rather 7 or 8. Okay. Who said "I am your reckoning"? Is it Surtur from Thor Ragnarok or Trump?
I am your reckoning.
I am your reckoning.
I'm going to say Surtur from Thor.
Yeah, that's right. Who said "I am vengeance"? I am the night. Trump or Batman?
I know where this is going.
Yeah, I know you do.
Batman.
You're correct. Who said "I am Gotham's reckoning"?
No, well, Gotham. Okay.
Oh, I did it wrong. Here's my Bane. I am Gotham's reckoning.
Yeah, it's Bane.
It's Bane. You're correct. Who said "You have failed this city"? Is it Trump or the Green Arrow?
It could be both.
Yeah, it could be, but it's the Green Arrow. It's Green Arrow's catchphrase, actually.
Oh, okay.
Every time he pulls an arrow on somebody, and it's "You have failed this city." Who said "I am your retribution"? Trump or Thanos?
Trump said that.
He did.
Like the pro wrestler he is.
He literally did.
At CPAC, which is a pro wrestling activity. Yes.
And a bunch of people got up in their little chairs and went, "Yay, you're my retribution."
Not a bunch, just a few.
A handful.
Do you know it costs $295 to attend that?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. For $5 you get to listen to this podcast. Actually, you can do it for free. All right. Who said, "But what about the Democrats and Diebold"? Was it Trump at his rally or Mona Charen on the Chris Hayes show?
Well, she actually said, and there's a story behind this, because I was out last night at Lenten Bible study, which Driftglass doesn't go to. I just go to that. But on my way home, I put on MSNBC in the car.
Yep.
And immediately it was Mona Charen saying both sides.
You know what, Blue Gal? I got to say, I've really had it with all of your bringing up the bulwark and both sides on this podcast.
Constantly. I'm always bringing that up, aren't I?
You're always doing that.
I had to remember. You said, "Let me guess." I said, "You won't believe what I just heard on Chris Hayes in the car." And you went, "Oh, let me guess. Was it a bulwark person?" And I said, "I don't know." And then I don't know if she is or not. He said, "Oh, she? Is it Mona Charen?"
Yeah.
Wait, yeah. How did you know? He said, "She's with the bulwark."
She is. She has her own podcast once a week where she
interviews.
I
mean, I on the edge and the corners and the crispy edges of my knowledge, I know that Mona Charen has is it called Beg to Differ?
Yes.
What her podcast? Yeah, see, I do. I know some things. See, I do know some things about these things. I really avoid, except for Keith Olbermann, I really avoid other podcasts because I feel like I don't want this to be a podcast about what other podcasts say. That's what it will be if I listen to lots of other podcasts. So
you know who said something similar? It was Charlie Sykes on his. No, that's kidding. I'm kidding.
No, but she did say both sides. This was about Fox and how this is the perfect moment for Fox to have all of these marks, and it's clearly that these conservative voters and Trump voters are marks for Fox News and the right-wing ecosystem to just take advantage.
Yep.
And then Mona Charen said, "But it is both sides because the left had questions about Diebold voting machines in 2004."
Uh-huh.
And so I wrote a post today with a clip of that clip at Crooks and Liars saying, oh, Mona. Don't bring that little memory tidbit to a I remember stuff party with me.
Bad
because
plan.
I remember lots of things.
Uh-huh.
I remember Richard Nixon negotiating with the Viet Cong before the 1968 election.
Right.
68. LBJ on the phone saying, "But that's treason."
Yeah. Oh no.
And I remember 2000, Matt Schlapp being one of Roger Stone's boys in the
Brooks
Brothers riot
Yeah.
to stop
absolutely.
black votes in Florida from being counted.
Yeah.
And I
No,
remember the Supreme Court, quote unquote, deciding that race for Bush.
Yep. 5-4. Yep.
And I also remember Donald Trump on January 6th. And you know what happened in 2004, Driftglass? At the inauguration 2005, that, by the way, the head of Home Depot paid for the inauguration, Bush's second inaugural.
Uh-huh.
You know what happened at that? There were protests.
Oh, really?
There were turn your back on Bush protests.
Oh.
And people lined the parade route and turned their back when Bush walked by.
Uh-huh.
They didn't have, hang Dick Cheney and a rope and break down doors at the Capitol building and shit in the hallways.
Are you sure?
I'm
about
sure.
Because both sides is a pretty potent weapon. You got to be really sure you're exactly equivalent when you're doing the both sides.
I'm absolutely sure that no one broke into the Capitol building dressed as a shaman, a QAnon shaman, to stop the count. In fact, Al Gore supervised the 2000 the count in Congress.
Yes, he did.
And he would not allow black congresswomen from Florida to object to the vote because no U.S. senator stood up to object with them.
Right. And it had to be one-on-one.
Who was the U.S. senator that all of the insurrectionist Congress people had on their side? Do you remember?
Ted Cruz?
In January?
Ted Cruz?
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz from Texas.
They got a U.S. senator to stand up with them, and it was Ted Cruz.
Yeah. Well,
the guy that Trump insulted his wife.
Yeah. Well,
called
after
his
all,
wife ugly,
And his father did participate in the Kennedy assassination. And he may or may not be the Zodiac killer. I mean, I'm just saying.
Zodiac killer. Yeah, that's right.
Wildly.
Anyway, yeah.
But
so
remember,
Mona Charen, don't bring your little memory to my house.
Yeah, and really, the quiz is not that quiz needs to be guess which Bulwark employee.
That's what it needs.
Because at this point, I'm not kidding. There is not. It is a steady stream of recently former Republicans all working for the same website, all on MSNBC, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I have said before, there's a couple of them who are fine people, who I have no objection to. But this entire rehabilitation project that was financed by MSNBC's in-kind contributions, imagine if, name your top 3, 4, 5, 6 liberal bloggers, and imagine them being given free time on cable TV every fucking day for years. Imagine what kind of mansion we would live in, Blue Gal.
Yeah.
Imagine the deals on the book sales I would get that I'd get a ghostwriter to write because I don't write that shit. Just imagine the fabulous wealth. Imagine what we could do with all the money that would be rolling in if every time you turned on liberal television, someone was reminding you that, the Driftglass blog is open and Driftglass and Blue Gal pretty much single-handedly won the election for Joe Biden. And
I'm just imagining you having a ghostwriter to write the 4th or 5th volume of your Hunt for Red October ripoff.
It's a reimagining of the Hunt for Red October. Okay.
I don't know if any of our listeners have realized that somewhere on your cable panoply, Hunt for Red October is playing at all times.
It's right now. Yeah.
And if Driftglass has the remote and he comes across Hunt for Red October, we're going to watch it till the end.
Not unless Tombstone is on.
Godfather 2.
Unless Tombstone or Godfather is on, in which case it's a toss-up, Blue Gal. And I know 2 things. One,
John Wick.
That's
John
the
Wick.
other one. John Wick is like chewed bubblegum. I've seen that enough. I don't need that anymore. Okay. But Tombstone or Godfather, in which case you will leave the room and go do Bible studies, which are fun.
I will. I'll go do. Yeah. I've got to go to Lenten Bible study now. I'll see you later.
Anyway, getting on with my quiz.
It's
which
a happy marriage, folks. Yeah, get back to the quiz.
All right. Who said I am what I am? Gloria Gaynor or Popeye?
I'm strong to the finish because I eat my spinach. I am what I am. Popeye.
Trick question. It was both Gloria Gaynor.
Oh, okay.
Who said I am who I am? Was it Russell Brand or Yahweh?
Iago said, I am that I am not, which was Shakespeare's way of saying he He's the devil. But so I'd say Yahweh. I would say
Look,
God said that.
You're bringing Shakespeare to a Marvel and DC Universe fight. I think that's unfair. You're making me look stupid here, Blue Gal. All right, fine. Yeah, it was Yahweh. Russell Brand says a lot of crazy shit, but I don't know that he ever said that. Anyway, That's the end of this quote. Who said what?
How'd I do?
You did great, Blue Gal.
Hey, Driftglass, I have this thing I do on Twitter where I go back and look at 5 years ago and 10 years ago to see what I was tweeting. And sometimes it's worth retweeting. This week, I found that it was 5 years ago this week that Trump released his healthcare plan in 2018.
How's that plan going?
Yeah, how did it work out for him? And the person that brought this to the forefront of my Twitter feed in 2018 was Andy Slavitt, who, as you know, if I had had the direct dial phone number to the Obama Oval Office and Barack Obama picked up the phone and I would say, "Hi, can I talk to Andy Slavitt?"
Yeah. Oh, God, it's her again. Yes, Slavitt, get over
Andy.
Here. I got one more question, Andy.
Andy, because what Andy Slavitt was doing was really critical to my life. So that's why.
He's a hero. In our house, he's a hero.
And he is our hero. Yes, he is. But he tweeted about the Trump healthcare proposals on March 6th, 2018. And here's what he said. The White House is asking Congress, this is the Trump White House, is asking Congress to codify the junk insurance policies. This says let insurance companies create fine print policies that can discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions. And if you've read up on the Obamacare fight and so forth, the number one thing that all the insurance lobbyists wanted to get rid of was the protection for people with pre-existing conditions. They wanted to be able to charge them more. They wanted to be able to remove them from their roles and make them somebody else's problem because that costs them money.
Exactly.
Secondly, Trump is insisting on an age tax to massively increase costs for people over 50 in order to support any deal. And he showed a picture of part of the proposal that indicated that there would be a 5-to-1 cost range so that people over 50 would be able to basically pay 5 times as much as someone much younger. And again, that goes along with pre-existing conditions. People who are over 50 use their health insurance more.
Right. Yes,
than people who are under 50. That's what happens. Andy Slavitt goes on. The White House, Trump White House, has created a new term called life protected. This means policies must not provide for family planning for women.
Jesus.
Remember, it is already federal law that federal money doesn't pay for abortion. This proposal looks like it aims to go well beyond that. And of course, one of the big things that Obama did was to make sure that birth control was covered under all of the ACA plans. Okay.
So it's garbage top to bottom.
Garbage plans that could have fine print on them that they wouldn't cover you if you had pre-existing conditions. Age tax for people over 50. That would be a huge difference in price. And life protected, meaning taking away coverage from women for reproductive care. Okay.
But as I remember, Blue Gal, it was going to cost mere pennies. Cover
a fraction
everyone.
of the cost, great coverage, and it'll be super easy. Yes.
And everyone's going to get to keep everything all the time they want.
Now, here's what I would consider Driftglass. The maraschino cherry on the cupcake. This is also from Andy Slavitt. This document that the Trump White House released is the equivalent from walking away from the table from the promise they supposedly made to Susan Collins.
Oh, no. They lied to Susan Collins?
They lied to Susan Collins. And this was the agreement they had with Susan Collins that bought her vote on the tax bill. Oh. So she voted for tax cuts for billionaires, thinking she was going to get certain protections, particularly for women. And they reneged on those promises to Susan Collins. I'm sure she was very concerned and disappointed.
Do you think maybe she wrote a stern letter?
She was disappointed. I'm really disappointed.
I'm very disappointed in you, Donald. But I think he's learned his lesson now. Yeah,
maybe he learned his lesson this time. Andy Slavitt concludes by saying these policies would raise costs for seniors, people with illnesses, women, and add unacceptable conservative policies while raising costs for low-income population. Why choose between sabotage, bad faith, and higher costs when you can do all three? That's where Trump is.
Okay.
And so when you're thinking about Donald Trump now promising freedom cities for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to remember it, because no one wants to remember the Trump administration. I get it. It's a terrible, terrible time of all of our lives. But this man is running for president again, ostensibly.
Again.
I don't think he should even be allowed to run for president again. He's a felon. But and you're going to laugh at me because I'm going to say the media should. But his policy, he's got a record.
He does. A past record,
He's
which
got
you can look up.
a past record that he should be asked about. And there's that word should again.
Yeah. Meantime,
on the other end of the Republican spectrum, J.D. Vance has ideas for how to help. He doesn't say white people, but, white people have more babies. He wants to roll out a universal pregnancy coverage bill.
Ooh. Where have I heard that before?
Well, Trump has like baby bonds ideas, and there are other ideas out there about providing low-income families with a college savings bond or a adulthood bond for their children to encourage saving, to give parents, low-income parents in particular, a foot up in terms of having wealth, right? Having some sort of wealth to leave to their children, particularly when their children turn 18, they can start a business, buy a home, do first, last, and security deposit on an apartment, and get a car so they can have a job. I mean, those are, whatever it is, that kids in low-income families graduate from high school with no way to launch themselves into adulthood financially.
Right.
And so you do a bond that gives them $10,000 if they hold on to it to 18. They get it at birth. It doesn't cost the government a huge amount of money because it's growing over 18 years.
Right.
And that's it. So, I mean, these ideas have been floating around for a long time. J.D. Vance wants to do a universal pregnancy coverage bill. What J.D. Vance apparently hasn't noticed is that Hillary Clinton provided essentially universal coverage for pregnancy in terms of low-income women back when she did the S-CHIP program.
Yes, she did, which we covered. I believe we covered on our No Fair Remembering Stuff podcast, the history of healthcare.
And what that provides for is if you get pregnant and you don't have health insurance, you get on Medicaid.
That's right.
And that is, I hate to say it, that's also a sop to the anti-abortion people, which is, look, no one has to abort their pregnancy because they can't afford medical care for that pregnancy. However, I got very upset on Twitter with Josh Marshall, because Josh Marshall said, well, that's great that we are going to do basically Medicare for all for babies, but that's not going to make women have 10 babies. And all these men are sitting here talking about birthing babies who have never birthed a baby.
Yeah. Who don't know nothing about birthing
3 babies. And I am here to tell you that the reason women don't have 3 babies, like I did, if you want to have larger families and marriages that last and so forth, the reason women hesitate to even have a second child is they can't get time off of work to go to the hospital and give birth. Women of a certain economic class save up their goddamn vacation time so they can take time off and give birth and go back to work less than 10 days after they've given birth.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, they won't be able to pay their rent or their mortgage. We have a we're the only country in the world besides there's one other one like Senegal or something that doesn't provide paid family leave for women who give birth. And, I get it. We know who the lobbyists are who are lobbying against that. There's a huge amount of money preventing that from happening. But these male commentators, many of whom are on my team, need to ask women, and just do it this month. It's International Women's Month.
Yeah. Do it for Mother's Day.
Ask a woman what, I know I'm not going to take off time from work to give birth to a baby anymore. That ship has sailed, but I sure do know something about the amount of time, the amount of energy, and the concerns that women have about how is this going to affect me? And, the idea that here's Good Morning America having a segment in 2019 about, what the fun, cute little shower gift at work is now? People are giving their vacation days to pregnant women so they can take 12 days instead of 10. What fuckery is that?
God, they're sneaking food out of the cafeteria so that she can have food to eat at home,
Yeah,
too. Isn't that
right.
nice? Isn't that nice? No, that's horrifying.
That's horrifying.
Yeah.
Paid family leave, people. Ask J.D. Vance about paid family leave, and you'll find out what side of the bread his butter is on.
Now, all that having been said, remember both sides. Barack Obama's health plan had death panels in it to kill your grandmother. So, just ask Mona Charen. Yeah.
Ask Mona Charen. Sure. Beg to differ.
Yeah, I'm sure it was in there somewhere because I remember hearing about it a million times.
Mm-hmm.
And now that Donald Trump's healthcare plan is celebrating its 5th year anniversary of not being passed,
Mm-hmm.
we don't hear about it at all. Like, wasn't this supposed to be the greatest advancement in
Didn't they have a beer blast? Didn't House Republicans have a beer blast? No, a lot of them aren't there anymore. That is the truth.
To get rid of Obamacare. But that was going to be replaced by the greatest healthcare plan mankind had ever seen. And I understand, and I agree with what you said about it's all down the memory hole now. It's just one giant big ball of, oh my God, I can't believe we elected that psycho, or they elected that psycho. And oh my God, I can't believe even more of them came out to vote to reelect him at the end of 4 years of clearly observed, deranged, traitorous behavior. But that doesn't tell me anything about Donald Trump. It tells me everything about the Republican base, everything I will ever want to know. Now, there was a small group of people who got pooped out of the party about 6 or 7 years ago. They squeezed a tiny little turd out called the Never Trumpers. And they have a thing they do every summer for the last 3 years called the Principals First Summit, where they all sit around and quote Edmund Burke to each other and talk about Reagan and wistfully remember the good old days when George Bush was president, which I don't remember as the good old days at all. But they have this at the Conrad Hilton, and this is the headline from Politico. Never Trumpers rally in D.C. trying to find hope and a plan amid despair. A 2-day conference in the nation's capital was a counter-programming of sorts to the MAGA confab happening just down the river. Okay, I have some notes. First is the fact that I wasn't invited is a travesty. I should have been greeted as a liberator by these people. First of all, I've been Never Trump since Nixon, okay? Yeah. Since I was 14, 13, 12 years old, I've been Never Trump forever. And these people think that them finally figuring out, like 5 minutes ago, that the party they were a member of their entire life is fucked in the head is like cracking the Mayan Codex. It's like some advanced genius shit. So if that is true, then liberal bloggers should be greeted as liberators and near godlike status by these people, but they don't. Secondly, don't meet in D.C. Don't meet in D.C. Oh my God, can't you get it through your head that D.C. leaves a stink on you? Go someplace else. I know you're all only comfortable, and this is Bill Kristol, hanging out in D.C.
That it's a big ass tax deduction, so they can have 3 days at a Hilton hotel.
Sure, have a Hilton
and eat on expense account.
You know what? There's a Hilton hotel in Chicago. There's probably 2 of them. There's probably 3 of them. You can eat. There's lots of places you can have your conference that don't involve being in the shadow of Kevin McCarthy. So go someplace else. Go to a diner somewhere in the Midwest where you can actually have Trump voters wander in and ask you what you're doing there. Where's your MAGA hat? And third, this is a practical suggestion of how to do a better job at the whole thing you're trying to do. You should really just become a panel at Netroots Nation. I really do think that would be better. They'd fit right in, and they could really wow the audience with their keen insights into how screwed up the Republican Party is. Because those people have never heard that before. When that idea occurred to me, I was reminded of just like the way Rand Paul wowed the audience at Howard University.
Oh God, that was a shit show.
Do you remember that? It was Howard University, as I'm sure everybody listening to us knows, is one of the oldest and most respected historically black colleges or universities in the whole United States. And Ron Paul had obviously spent 0 time learning about Howard University at all. And then he went there and proceeded to very condescendingly lecture his audience of mostly African-American students and grad students and professors on the history of black voters and the Republican Party, using what one magazine called, quote, the abridged version preferred by Fox News pundits. The whole history that ignores everything that happened after 1964.
Right.
They just went to, Lincoln. I don't know if you know this. Lincoln freed the slaves. I'm not sure you know this. Democrats were the party of Jim Crow, so black people should vote Republican. Rand Paul screwed up one of the names of the only elected black senators and a Howard alum, Massachusetts Republican Edward Brooke, calling him Edwin Brooke, and then asked the audience if they knew that the founders of the NAACP were Republicans. And the people in the audience laughed at him and said, yeah, we're aware, Rand. This is kind of the shit we study. This is the shit we knew when we were 5. Apparently, this is all news to you. And he's like trying to coax them into believing that that's why the Republicans are really your buddies, as if they had no fucking idea what it. And it was just the fact that he chose that audience to be that condescending to. And later he tried to lie about his position on the Civil Rights Act. And an audience member pointed out that his opposition was on tape. And that made him look,
one of the key provisions of the Civil Rights Act. Yeah.
It was on tape and like, oh, that's right. I said something in front of a microphone. And you people all have microphones and video recorders and TV here, right? Yeah, we got all that. You
people. Did you just say you people, Rand?
I did.
Oh, that's nice.
But that's the level of, when I think of Never Trumpers lecturing people, especially liberals, about the history of the Republican Party, which only began in 2016, Blue Guy. There was no Republican Party before that. It's like, first of all, they should become a panel at Netroots Nation, just for the reaction.
It would be the same kind of reaction. Yes, it would.
Hey, Charlie Sykes, weren't you one of the assholes on Hate Radio? I have tapes of you here. You want me to play them? I got 30 years worth.
Are you the reason we don't have high-speed rail in Wisconsin? Yeah. Yes.
And that's when they run from the audience. That's why they have to gather in Washington, D.C., only among themselves.
And
talk. Yes. I think there were one or two.
On the down low. Yes.
Yeah. And so I have a lot of, I feel a lot sorrier for them if they weren't getting free media on cable TV every goddamn day.
Yep.
And I don't know what their plan is. I mean, they know in their heart of hearts, one thing that always comes through when I hear these people is they laugh at the Republican base and call them idiots and brainwashed morons. They're the same idiots and brainwashed morons who put food on these people's tables, and they knew the people
for decades. Yeah.
And one that jumped out at me, that I will share. I will only say this between you and I, Blue Gal, since no one's listening. I did listen to Rick Wilson's podcast a little bit, and he has found out that there's this new shady group called No Labels that is bad and sketchy.
I know people that have critiqued No Labels since No Labels started, the week it started.
Since the week it started, I was writing, but apparently Rick Wilson just found this out and he repeats on his podcast, No Labels equals Trump. It will take votes away. It's bad. It's a terrible idea.
He's correct about that. He's correct about that.
They're correct about all this shit. But
that does not mean that you are the original critiquer of these things. Yes.
No, you base. I will divert momentarily to an episode of Gunsmoke if you don't mind.
Okay.
There's an episode of Gunsmoke called it's like 7 hours till dawn or something like that. And rather than a bank robber or a stagecoach robber or whatever the crime is, robbing a single bank or robbing a single stagecoach, an entire gang comes into Dodge, and they filter into town, and they take the town over completely, and they loot it from top to bottom. They take every bottle of whiskey, every piece of jewelry, every piece of gold, everything. They loot the whole place, and I won't tell you how it ends because why spoil a 60-year-old show? But that's how Never Trumpers are operating now. They're not taking one idea from the liberal blogosphere or two. They've stolen everything. Mm-hmm. Everything they say, every critique of the GOP, every complaint they have about No Labels, every bitch they have about how Republican politicians are just going on television to pander to Fox. They know this shit because that used to be their job. And while they were doing that job, they had no problem with it. Over on the side, there were a group of people pointing out that this was a terrible thing, and they were mocked and slandered and called shitheads and Cheeto smeared idiots by these same people. And now that they're all out of the GOP, they're all getting parades and accolades for telling the nation, for going on MSNBC every hour on the hour. Don't you understand how bad the GOP is? I have no problem with that. I have a huge problem with them completely canceling out the entire liberal critique of the Republican Party.
Yep.
You want to talk about cancel culture? We don't exist anymore, Blue Gal. We're not there. I don't see Digby on with Chris Hayes. I see Mona Charen there every week. And what's Mona Charen saying that Digby couldn't say, and say better, and say with more credibility, because she was on this shit 20 years ago. Anyway, that's my usual take on this thing. I just think come to Netroots Nations. You'll have friends there.
Let's just do a Dominion lawsuit filing, quote, round robin.
Okay, all right. You want to go first?
There's so much to say about this, but let's just do that.
After you.
Okay, Rupert Murdoch. The real danger is what he might do as president. Apparently not sleeping and bouncing off walls. Don't know about Melania, but kids no help.
And Carlson. We are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I truly can't wait.
Okay, I'm going to ask you not to do Tucker Carlson's voice again.
Okay, I'm sorry. I scared the cats, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Tucker Carlson. About Trump. I hate him passionately.
Tucker Carlson about Trump. He's a demonic force.
Tucker Carlson. We're all pretending we've got a lot to show for it, the Trump administration, because admitting what a disaster it's been is too tough to digest. And that's when I ask, for whom?
For whom? Mm-hmm.
Too tough to digest, but come on. There really isn't an upside to Trump.
Tucker Carlson complaining that, quote, our news divisor, I think they mean division, people are promoting it, as in legitimizing criticism of the insurrection and calling it an insurrection.
Irena Briganti is a Fox executive in the communications division. She, Briganti, is coordinating this, Ingram alleged.
Carlson responded to this without question. She hates us. Irena hates primetime. Trust me, this is not speculation.
More quotes on the subject of Tucker Carlson's bullshit 4-minute The Truth About January 6th disaster. This was a shit show that they did not expect would get the pushback it did.
No.
First, Tucker Carlson said, deadly insurrection, everything about that phrase is a lie. Very little about Jan 6 was organized or violent. Surveillance video from inside the Capitol shows mostly peaceful chaos. And he was only able to find 4 minutes of video out of 44,000 hours of video.
And
right?
Republican Representative Tom Tillis had lots to say, but the short version was, quote, it's bullshit, unquote.
Yep. Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, called it offensive and misleading conclusions, including a disturbing accusation that Officer Brian Sicknick's death had nothing to do with the riot. Quote, I want to associate myself entirely with the opinion of the chief of the Capitol Police about what happened on January 6th. It was a mistake, in my view, for Fox News to depict this in a way that's completely at variance with what our chief law enforcement official here at the Capitol thinks. That took his comms team half a day.
It did.
Because you have to say it in such a way. But back the blue was the angle he went with.
Republican Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota says, I think that breaking through glass windows and doors to get into the United States Capitol against the borders of a police is a crime. I think particularly when you come into the chambers, when you start opening the members' desks, when you start standing up in their balcony, to somehow put that in the same category as, permitted peaceful protest is just a lie. I think it doesn't do any good for the narrative. Now, that's the part that I like. Okay.
The narrative.
The narrative. There's a story we have to tell. And being completely full of shit when the tape's right in front of you isn't helping our narrative. You're not helping the party here, Tucker.
Mitt Romney, he's a senator from Utah now.
Yeah, really.
Quote, it's really sad to see Tucker Carlson go off the rails like that.
Yeah. Just happened like a week ago.
Joining a range of shock jocks that are disappointing America and feeding falsehoods. The American people saw what happened on January 6th. See, that's the problem.
Yeah, witnesses.
The American people saw what happened on January 6th. They've seen the people that got injured. They saw the damage to the building. You can't hide the truth by selectively picking a few minutes out of tapes and saying this is what went on. It's so absurd. It's nonsense. It's a very dangerous thing to do, to suggest that attacking the Capitol of the United States is in any way acceptable, and it's anything other than a serious crime against democracy and against our country. Trying to normalize that behavior is dangerous and disgusting, unquote.
Republican Senator Mike Rounds from South Dakota, quote, I was there on January 6th. I saw what happened. I saw the aftermath. There was violence on January 6th. I think the footage that's available should be made available to all networks, and everybody should be able to see for themselves just what kind of chaos we had on that day.
And Lindsey Graham even. Wow. I think the January 6th committee had a partisan view of things, and I'd like to know more about what happened that day and the day before, but I'm not interested in whitewashing the COVID lab theory, and I'm not interested in whitewashing January 6th.
Yeah.
Who asked you?
Yeah. Yeah. Even Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham.
But he's got to bring up COVID lab.
Sure, because, both sides. Now, all of that having been said,
yep.
I think it falls to all of us responsible, grown-up adult citizens to remember some ugly facts.
Mm-hmm.
All of these idiots who watch Fox News got over Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Bill O'Reilly never got run off the air because he was a lying, treacherous asshole. He got run off the air because his sexual predations got too expensive for the Fox News
That's right.
department to afford.
Yep.
Roger Ailes didn't get run out of town because he was a monster and a fascist and a traitor. He got run out of town, run out of Fox because his sexual predations got too expensive for Fox to afford. And they got over O'Reilly. O'Reilly came, he went. It was the end of the world. Then it wasn't. They got over Glenn Beck, who got, remember, no one's bigger than the game, Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
So when he got too big, he went off and started his own thing and had his own Freedom Cities and has turned into the same nut job he always was. But he was the biggest thing in the world for a while there. And then he left and they got over him. They got over Megyn Kelly. I remember sitting with a right-wing nut job of my acquaintance in Springfield who said, basically after it was clear that Donald Trump didn't like her anymore, it was, I'm kind of through with that Megyn Kelly. I mean, she's worse than that lesbian over Rachel Maddox. Is that her name? They went from turning Megyn Kelly into a masturbatory object of their desire into she's just not one of us anymore. Like that. And you know who they replaced her with? Tucker Carlson.
Yep.
This bow-tied little gleep who got his start on MSNBC and who was a preppy and who's everything they hate. And now he's their god. They'll get over him too. They'll find someone else to come in and occupy the space where Tucker Carlson is now if they get rid of Tucker Carlson. And they'll all forget it ever happened. And it'll go right back to being the pig people they are. And so I'm glad this is all coming out in the open. I'm glad Rupert Murdoch is having trouble sleeping at night. I'm glad there are court cases where this is all being dragged into the public view.
And I hope there's going to be punitive damages that puts Fox out of business.
I hope.
But there will be people lining up outside of Newsmax
for that hit,
for that job, and for those on-air jobs because they're addicted to being on television.
Yeah.
And the issue is, will the behavior of places like Newsmax have to change because they realize punitive damages are coming if they don't?
That's a really good question.
That's a good question.
But at some point, you have to realize that fascists never back down.
No, they don't.
They change tactics. They go into hiding for a while. They go quiet for a while while they reload. But these people are not going to ever back. They've gone too far. There's no way back for Tucker Carlson into civilized society.
Right.
I mean, believe me, the mainstream media would love nothing more than to have a big welcome back party for all the Republican elected officials and all the Republican base and 90% of the people who worked at Fox News. It was all a big fever, and the fever's broken. We're real sorry, and we're real sorry too. And the Democrats are pretty bad too. And reintegrate these people right back into normalized everyday society so they can go right back to doing the horrifying things they did before. That is
and have a horse race election that's ratings for everybody. Yeah.
That's what they want. And it probably will happen sooner or later. But for right now, I will take my wins where I can find them. And now, a news roundup.
Yep. The Bidening continues. Here's a Trump quote. The Republican Party was ruled by freaks, neocons, open border zealots, and fools. We're never going back to the party of Paul Ryan, Karl Rove, and Jeb Bush.
No notes. You're exactly right. You've summed up the Republican Party perfectly. It just got worse instead of better. But yeah, it was a party ruled by freaks and neocons and zealots and liars and corrupt weirdos and apparently a lot of perverts and a lot of handsy people and molesters and enablers of child abuse, and all the worst things in the world are, you can find in one party.
Everybody should go read my Don't You Dare Call It Trumpism column from August of 2016.
It really should.
In which I point out that the reason the Republican base bolted and went for Trump is that he was the only person pointing out that Jeb was an embarrassment.
Right.
And they were embarrassed they didn't want to be reminded of George W. Bush because he was a failure. And the Republican administration, the RNC, wanted it to be Jeb.
Mm-hmm. And that's how out of touch the elite Republicans were with their own base. And you know who knew what was going on in their own base? People like Rick Wilson and Charlie Sykes. Yep. And those people knew because they had to deal with them on a daily basis. They're the ones that had to shape ads to get these racists to the polls. They're the ones who had to get them fired up on hate radio every day. Mm-hmm. They knew what they were, what the base was like. But there was this protective shell over the Republican Party, the respectable David Brooks face of the Republican Party that was presented on the news and in major newspapers and magazines as the Republican Party. Those of us out here in the real world were screaming, no, 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 no. That's a mustache. That's a mustache on a rabid animal. That is not the Republican Party. The Republican Party is the rabid dog. And the little mustache it's wearing, that's the David Brooks. And you keep confusing one with the other, and it's going to get you killed. And now that it's all been proven true, you can tune in anytime on MSNBC and see Mona Charen taking credit for it. Vivek Ramaswamy, who has money and wrote a book about the horrors of wokeness, and so is 100% qualified to run for Republican president, said he received an offer, this is shocking, to buy his way into the bullshit CPAC straw poll. So, oh no.
I take it that Vivek Ramaswamy is an Indian American?
I believe that is correct. American? I wouldn't swear by it, but you know what? Vivek, listen to me. You got to buy your elevator pass. It's just the rule. You got to buy an elevator pass, and it's going to cost you $100,000. And come see me. I can print you up one tomorrow.
I just want to point out that J.D. Vance's wife is an East Indian American, and he removed her from his print ads.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So he whited her out, did he?
He did.
Yeah. Well,
Walgreens, the nation's second largest pharmacy chain, will not dispense abortion pills in 20 states, including some places where abortion is still legal and available. Last month, 20 Republican states' attorneys general threatened Walgreens and other pharmacies with legal action if they dispensed mifepristone. I'm probably saying that wrong. Mifepristone, I think. The Biden administration called Republican efforts to dissuade pharmacies from distributing abortion pills dangerous and just unacceptable. Meanwhile, 5 women who were denied abortions under Texas law while facing medical crises are suing the state. The first time that pregnant women have taken legal action against abortion bans. These are women who wanted their pregnancies to be carried to term but had medical need to terminate those pregnancies because there was something wrong with the pregnancy, which happens.
Yes.
Talk to women. I've told the story about my mom and my sister.
Yeah.
In 1968 when abortion was illegal.
Yep.
And
tragic. Tragic.
It's a tragedy. My sister was not going to live, period. And my mother wanted more children, was prepared to have more children. But in 1974, she would have been told by her doctor, you must terminate this pregnancy because this pregnancy is not going to last. It's not going to survive. Mm-hmm. And she wanted bed rest to try to save it and so forth. And I mean, it makes me sick to my stomach to think of her going through that. But women go through this stuff.
Yep.
Trust women. Meanwhile, second best governor in the USA, California's Gavin Newsom. Sorry, Gavin.
Yeah.
You're only the second best governor. We hold that in Illinois as best governor. He has now put all of California's, quote, relationships with Walgreens under review.
Yeah. When you're a giant economy, you can do things like that.
You can do things like this. And this is from Wonkette. Quote, this is Newsom's statement. Quote, California is reviewing all relationships between Walgreens and the state. We will not pursue business with companies that cave to right-wing bullies pushing their extremist agenda or companies that put politics above the health of women and girls. Mm-hmm. It's not hard.
Oh, and this is not DeSantis and Disney.
No, it is not.
This is him saying, "Look, you can still go to Walgreens in California. Nobody's going to stop you. Nobody's going to stand. Nobody's going to point and shame you.
We're not
Nobody's gonna try to-"
changing Walgreens'
No,
tax status.
at all. No, you can do, but we're the state, and we're not going to do business with
We're
them.
not going to buy. Right.
So that's a decision they made. And if Ron DeSantis had said the state of Florida will no longer buy Disney, memorabilia to hand out at conventions, great, that's not a problem. But trying to destroy them and changing their tax status and telling them what they can and can't do, no. That's a very, very different thing than a government deciding which contracts it will let based on criteria that is publicly available and very reasonable and the voters support.
Right.
So screw that guy. The Federal Reserve warned that it will likely lift interest rates higher and faster than previously expected if incoming data continues to point to a strong economy and persistent inflation.
Elizabeth Warren had words about that.
Yeah.
For the head of the Fed, she wants him to meet personally with people who are going to be thrown out of work and be susceptible to suicide, because suicides go up with every time you raise interest rates because people lose their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And the head of the Fed needs to see the human face of what he's doing. Elizabeth Warren gave Jerome Powell what for? Biden proposed taxing the rich in an attempt to ensure that Medicare is funded for at least the next 25 years. The plan would raise Medicare taxes to 5% from 3.8% on Americans earning more than $400,000. The Biden administration also proposed allowing Medicare to expand its ability to negotiate lower prescription drug prices. That's going to be a big cost saving.
Mm-hmm. Capitol Police Chief Thomas Manger denounced Tucker Carlson for airing an offensive and misleading portrayal of the January 6th insurrection, including a, quote, disturbing accusation, unquote, that Officer Brian Sicknick's death had nothing to do with the riot.
Trump pledged to stay in the 2024 presidential race even if he's indicted, saying, "I am your retribution," again, like a pro wrestler. Trump is facing 2 state investigations and 2 federal investigations.
Yeah, and who knows
what's hurry.
Hurry up, man. Who knows what will spring from those investigations. Paul Manafort has agreed to pay $3.15 million to settle a civil case filed by the Justice Department over his, quote, willful failure to timely report his financial interests in foreign bank accounts, unquote. Manafort failed to disclose to the Treasury Department nearly 24 bank accounts related to consulting work in Ukraine from 2006 to 2014.
And who did he go to work for in 2016 again?
I don't remember. For free?
Yeah, for free.
For free? Yeah, I don't. Some guy ran for
somebody's
president.
Campaign manager for free. Yeah.
Weird. So weird. And
2017.
Wasn't he pardoned? Didn't Paul Manafort
Yes, he was pardoned.
From that guy he worked for free? Yeah. Okay. Nothing
Since
wrong there.
2017, nearly 3/4 of all new debt was approved in bills supported by Republicans, and 3/5 of it was signed into law by Trump, according to an analysis of the House and Senate voting records and the fiscal estimates by the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office.
Yeah.
This is their debt.
Oh, well, it is. And they're trying to do the thing, and it's worked before, and it always works. And there's a New York Times headline that makes me sick that we'll get to in just a moment. Well, let's do it now. Sue in Rockville has asked readers to compare and contrast the 2 New York Times headlines. This is from 2019, New York Times headline, Trump proposes a record $4.75 trillion budget. In 2023, New York Times, Biden will release a dead-on-arrival budget, picking fight with GOP.
Wow.
When Republicans do it, it's non-controversial. It's just wallpaper. It's just how it happens. Democrats try to do anything remotely similar. They're picking a fight, and that's dead on arrival because we're not going to spend that kind of money.
Remember, in 2019, that the House majority was Democratic.
Yeah. Yep.
So it was dead on arrival as well. Yeah. Except it wasn't, because Democrats don't play shit with the debt ceiling.
No.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders signs a law gutting child labor protections for minors under 16 years old. The new governor of Arkansas signed HB 1410, the Youth Hiring Act, which guts child labor protections and removes what the new governor called arbitrary and burdensome and obsolete regulations. that required the state to verify the age of anyone working who is under 16 years old.
We feel obliged to mention on the behalf of Junior Dude that Oklahoma voted to not permit marijuana to be legal in the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah. Recreational marijuana. They voted in favor of medicinal marijuana many moons ago, but this week they voted down in a low turnout election.
Yep.
But the people who turned out were 60% in favor of not legalizing recreational pot.
So on Junior Dude's next cross-country sojourn, he'll be bypassing the state of Oklahoma.
Well, he'll be bypassing. He won't be spending as much time in Oklahoma as he would have otherwise.
Yeah. That's fair. Don't spend any money there, Junior Dude.
No.
In local news, the Illinois Supreme Court has taken up accelerated appeal of a ruling that struck down the state's ban on high-powered guns. The Illinois Supreme Court on Tuesday agreed to an accelerated hearing schedule for the state's appeal of a downstate judge's ruling that struck down a state ban on certain high-powered semi-automatic firearms and high-capacity ammunition magazines. Good.
Moms Demand Action is all over this.
Yes, they are. Bless their hearts.
Each week we post to our Facebook page and website an Internet Kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week's Internet Kitty is another dog. Princess Leia. We make no judgments about Internet pup heritage. And Princess Leia's human admits that Princess Leia appears to have some Chewbacca DNA in her somewhere. No judgment. Love is love. And no copyright infringement either. George Lucas.
Don't sue us.
The dog's name is Princess Leia.
Yeah.
Don't sue us, Disney. Of course, Princess Leia Eats Freshly Poured Dog Food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve Pet Store Perfection or Dollar Store Direct, your pets will sit on the kitchen floor and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured. Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh, my Lord, it's freshly poured. And you should go visit Princess Leia at our Facebook page or website. She is such a sweetie. You can send your Internet Kitty dog or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, where you can also write to both of us. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go, Postal Unions! Letter on the air unless you say otherwise. Don't forget our gourmet coffee guideline. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. It's 700 episodes, Driftglass.
700.
A penny an episode would be nice. This is not charity. This is our job. The most wonderful of our listeners support this podcast with a contribution. And you can too. See our website, proleftpod.com, for details. Both our PayPal, postal address information, it's all there at proleftpod.com. Special thanks to the lapsed Catholic listener who wrote to say he was giving up freeloading our podcast for Lent and sent us a tithe. 10% of his tax refund.
Wait a minute. Does that mean we can call this a tithe pod now?
A tithe pod. Oh, that's so bad.
Sorry.
He said, I'm giving up freeloading on your podcast for Lent. Here's a tithe of 10% of my tax refund. And listen, you just brought Junior Dude a pizza. So thank you very much for that.
Your heart. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Please share our show on social media. And if you love this podcast, please get someone else to listen. Please rate and review us on whatever podcast platform you listen on. We appreciate that you do all of that for us. Thank you. Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties have lived to see the day when Congressman Dan Goldman conducted an actual blogger ethics panel.
He sure did.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
A Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2023 DGBG Productions.